how to change your oil better than the dealership. Hello friends, I'm Jimmy with One Road. So you want to start changing your own oil. That's great. There are a lot of benefits to changing your own oil. Number one, it can be cheaper, much cheaper. Number two, quality. You can be sure that the oil going in your car is high quality. Number three, quantity. You can be sure that the amount of oil you put in your car is correct. And number four, you can be sure that the job is actually being done. Regarding that, make sure you stay to the end of the video. I will be telling you a horror story that happened to me at a dealership. Now, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of dealerships that do great. Okay, I'm sorry. There are plenty of dealerships out there that do great. Okay, I'm sorry. One more time. There are plenty of dealerships out there that do fantastic. Okay, I'm sorry. An oil change is very, very simple. There's just a few things you're gonna need to accomplish this task. You're gonna need a jack, a set of jack stands, an oil drain pan, as well as funnels of various sizes, a wrench for the drain plug, or perhaps a ratchet and socket, protective equipment such as rubber gloves and eye protection, wheel chocks, and of course, the correct weight oil and the correct oil filter. Now, this is where the quality and quantity part comes in. By purchasing the oil and the filter yourself, you will be ensuring high quality oil and the absolute correct oil filter going onto your car. Me personally, I love Mobil 1 fully synthetic oil, and I can buy that at Costco, 6 quarts on sale for roughly $28. For the filter, I would go with your manufacturer's recommended filter. In my case, it is an AC Delco because I'm gonna be working on a GM Suburban. And don't be scared off by the tools or equipment needed either. There's a great place you can go to get all of that stuff called Harbor Freight. And if you sign up, you can even get their free catalog, which include lots of coupons as well as 20 to even 25% off. Before we begin, let's talk about your car. The first thing you're gonna wanna do is make sure that your car is in an adequate area where you can jack it up and put it on jack stands. A good rule of thumb is to make sure that your engine is cool and has been sitting for at least a half hour or more. This ensures that the oil in your oil pan is nice and cool. You definitely don't wanna be removing that drain plug to have boiling hot oil scalding your hand. Okay, first things first here. Let's get the car up in the air. You're gonna wanna make sure you choose the correct area to jack up your car. You can find that area in your owner's manual. It should tell you the exact locations that are meant to jack up your car. In my case, because this is an older truck that is body on frame, I'm gonna choose a strong portion of the frame and throw my jack right under there. How high do you jack the car? Well, that all depends on how low your car already is. You're gonna need room under there to work. I would say to jack it up as much as the vehicle manufacturer suggests. In my case, I'm jacking my car up pretty high, mostly so I can film what I'm doing, but also because I like to have a lot of room under there. Definitely check your owner's manual to make sure you're not doing anything wrong. Okay, we're gonna lower it down on the jack stand. You can see here I have 2 jack stands, and that is because I like to be extra safe. In case one jack stand fails, I'll have a backup. You may only have to jack up one side of your vehicle, which is what I'm doing today. In this case, I'm also gonna leave my jack with tension on it, which gives me a third and final safety measure. Those 2 jacks, the jack, and the wheel chocks ensure that I am not gonna be crushed under this car. If this is your first time changing your oil, you may wanna have extra cardboard underneath your car to catch any splashes or spills that may be made from getting on your driveway or wherever it is you're changing your oil. With your hood open and before you get down underneath your car, now would be a great time to remove your oil fill cap. This is also a great place to check for the correct weight of oil needed for your engine. My truck calls for 5W30. With the cap removed, when we drain the oil from underneath, this will allow for adequate airflow to go in the top of the motor and allow the oil to flow freely. Now we can place our oil drain bucket directly underneath the oil drain plug. You also need to remember the oil comes out at a bit of an arc, so you may want to place it a little bit forward, but you might have to move it as it's draining a little bit back. With the oil drain bucket correctly placed and a rag on hand just in case, we can go ahead and use our adjustable wrench to loosen and remove our drain plug. Keeping positive pressure on the drain plug, go ahead and unscrew it by hand, always keeping pressure until you feel it skip over on itself. That way you know it's fully removed. Once you feel that, like I just did, simply let go and let the oil flow. And you can see because of our correct oil drain bucket placement, we never had to move it. The oil came out at an arc and is now falling straight down. We're gonna go ahead and let this drain for roughly 20 minutes to ensure all the oil is drained out. Once the oil drainage has slowed to a drip, we can replace our drain plug. Regarding your drain plug, you may need a brand new drain plug altogether or just a new gasket. In my case, this is a nylon gasket and I'm gonna go ahead and reuse it. Go ahead and put your drain plug back in, hand tighten it to ensure that you're not cross-threading. Once that's hand tight, we can grab our wrench and give it another quarter to half turn. Now that the oil drain plug is back on, we can move to the oil filter. You can see my oil filter here. Now this filter just simply needs to be removed with the old righty-tighty, lefty-loosey method. Grab on and twist. Okay, maybe it's not that easy. There are a variety of tools. In this case, this is an oil filter wrench, or you may have a situation where your oil filter is simply really slippery. In that case, you may want to try using an old piece of sandpaper. Just wrap the sandpaper around the filter and give it a good twist, and sometimes that'll give you enough grip to get this sucker off. In this case though, we are going to be using this oil filter wrench. You slide it over the filter, lock it in place in a position that you hopefully have room to turn it, and just begin to turn it slowly but surely, and your filter starts to come loose. Once your filter is loose enough and you have your oil drain pan in place, go ahead and loosen it the rest of the way by hand and be ready for oil to come pouring out. Simply unscrews. Once it's out, turn it vertical to keep it from spilling anymore and lower it down into your drain pan. Now, what you want to do is tip it over into the designated spot, giving it space underneath to let the oil flow out of it and into the pan. Now in this case, you can see on this U-joint, there's oil all over it. That is okay. You're going to want to use your rag and just dry up as much as you can. And by the way, remember the cardboard we put under the car to catch any spills? Well, it's working out perfectly. We are now ready to prepare our oil filter. I want to say there is lots of debate out there as to whether you pre-fill an oil filter or not. I've stated this in previous videos, but unless your oil filter is screwed in directly vertically, there's no real way to do it without making a gigantic mess. However, let's just say your oil filter does install completely vertically. In that case, what you'd want to do is simply open your quart of oil and pour it into your filter until it gets to the top. Then, upon install, you're going to want to be completely careful not to tip it over one way or the other too much. Simply put it up to the threads and slowly but surely screw it in. If you can get that filter up there full of oil without spilling any, my hat's off to you. For the rest of us, with oil filters that screw in horizontally, there's just no real way to pre-fill this thing without all the oil spilling out as you try to screw it in. So for me, I do not pre-fill my oil filters. That being said, there is one thing you're going to need to do to this filter before you install it. Take your quart of oil, flip it over once, and take the lid off. By flipping it over once, you've put enough oil in the cap here to use as lube for the gasket on your oil filter. Simply take your finger, rub it inside the lid, get that oil, and rub it on top of the gasket, getting it fully coated in oil. One other thing that you will want to check is to make sure that your old oil filter gasket is not stuck inside that oil filter mount. You can do that by simply looking at the oil filter mount or simply looking at your oil filter. In this case, I can see my gasket is still attached to the filter, so I'm good. Now that the bottom is buttoned up, the oil drain plug and the oil filter are tight, I can move on to filling that motor full of fresh, brand new oil. We'll start by placing our large funnel into the oil fill hole. Then we're going to take the cap off of our first quart of oil. Go ahead and dump it right into the funnel, making sure that you don't overflow your funnel. While this first quart is draining fully, we're going to prepare our second quart by pulling it out of the box and just simply removing the cap. Then we'll take this first quart out, making sure not to drip anything anywhere, and replace the cap. Put that back in the box, take your second quart, and repeat the process. You're going to want to make sure you're filling your car with the correct amount of oil, and you can find that in your owner's manual. In my case, this truck takes 5 quarts of oil, and so that's what I'll be putting in. Now that we have all of the oil in the motor, everything is buttoned up, and I see no leaks, I'm going to go ahead and let this truck down onto the ground. First thing I'm going to do is go ahead and jack it up just a little bit, to relieve the pressure off of the jack stands. Then we're going to remove the jack stands, and once those jack stands are removed and everything else is clear, we're going to slowly let down the truck. Now that the truck is on the ground and level, we are going to check the oil dipstick to make sure we have enough capacity. You'll want to make sure you have a rag handy to wipe the dipstick on, and simply grab your dipstick and pull it out, checking the oil level, making sure that it's within the recommended range. I'm going to go ahead and wipe this off so that it's nice and clean, and then reinstall. Reinsert it all the way in for just a second, and you can pull it right back out, and you can see that we are full. At this point, everything is done, and the only thing left is to replace our oil fill cap. Go ahead and just spin it into place. Click it a couple times and you're good to go. Well guys, I've got news for you. You've done it. Congratulations. You've officially changed your own oil. You've saved money, ensured the quality, ensured the quantity, and made sure the job was actually done and done right. Speaking of that, let's get on to the horror story. A few years ago, I had just purchased a car. It was a turbo diesel motor and needed a specific type of oil. Rather than doing it myself, I decided I was going to go out on a limb and take it to the dealership to have it done. I thought it was great. The dealership was clean, the service manager was nice, they took my car down into the service bay, and they even had video cameras filming my car the entire time. Up in the waiting room, I could watch those cameras and could clearly see my car. They popped my hood, raised the hood, but that's where the problem began. I watched my car. I watched it the entire time it was down there, for way too long, I might add. And then when they decided to shut the hood and bring the car back up and tell me it was done, I knew better. You see, I was watching that camera and they never touched my car. They never changed the oil. They never even did anything to it. They simply popped the hood, left it sitting there, and then shut the hood about an hour later and drove it up to me. Now, I'm not implying that they did this on purpose. I think it was a simple mistake, and I talked to the service manager about it, and they agreed to correct it. They gave me a fresh oil change right before my very own eyes, brought me down into the shop, and performed an inspection on the whole vehicle. So yes, I'm sure some of you can relate. From that point on, I vowed to never ever let anyone else change my oil unless it was an absolute necessity. Always remember, when working on your car, you need to take the proper safety precautions. This includes proper safety equipment, eye protection, maybe a face mask, and definitely gloves. You also want to ensure the proper placement of jacks and jack stands, and you can find that information in your owner's manual. Well, a huge thank you for watching this video to the end. If you want to see more, make sure you check the description below this video for links to any of the things that I used. Also, you can find me on Instagram at OneRoadGarage and my website, oneroadgarage.com. Well guys, I'm Jimmy with One Road. Until the next time, peace out.